My name is Munir. On behalf of the Sheridan Business Council and the Sheridan Career Education Center, I'd like to welcome you all to our LinkedIn event. I'm glad you guys are all here. It shows that you guys have you took a proactive step to actually improving your image. So we'll give you guys a hand. So first, we're going to start shortly. But first, I'd like to tell you guys about our very own Dragon's Den event. So the students are going to compete by presenting their business ideas and entrepreneurial ideas to a panel of judges, businessmen and entrepreneurs. Sorry. And they're going to win prizes by whoever has the best business ideas. And the first prize is actual mentoring on how to get the idea off the ground. So that's a great opportunity. It's on November 13th. So mark your calendar. And without further ado, I present to you Nicole Donaldson.
Good morning, everybody. I'm going to try and project my voice. Can everybody hear me? Yes. Awesome. Okay. So I actually am a staff member at the college. I work at the HMC campus in Mississauga. I work for a program that supports internationally trained individuals, newcomers to Canada. And I kind of wear a number of hats in that program. Firstly, I'm an instructor, and myself and Glenna on Fridays you find us in the classroom doing some pre-employment training. So I help individuals prepare themselves for entering the workplace. So a lot of that is specifically involved with spending a great deal of time and energy with LinkedIn. And making sure that everyone's profiles are really highlighting the special skill sets that they have to offer, and that you're utilizing it in a way that's going to bring people to your LinkedIn site and any other sites that you might have where you're showing samples of your work. Okay. The other role I have is I'm a placement coordinator. Right. So what I need to do is I work with students from a whole different technical backgrounds, engineers, medical doctors, accountants, finance people, anything you can kind of think about, they probably come through our program. So we have a really mixed group of individuals. So one of the things that's really important is that when I'm looking for placements, I have to constantly be in contact with new employers. And discovering which employers are out there, however obscure they may be, however unique their services and products are. Part of my role is to try and figure out, where somebody might be best matched. All right. And so what I started to do in the last, really in the last 6 years, specifically with LinkedIn, is using the different tools there to understand business and understand what employers are looking for, so I can help individuals tailor and customize their brand, their image, what they're projecting out there in the world, so that they're getting more opportunities to network, more opportunities to have information interviews, more opportunities to have interviews for employment, this kind of thing. We're all familiar with how challenging it is when you've been laid off or you're a new student and you're out there looking for work, to find something that is related, that's going to satisfy your needs, that's geographical proximity to where you are. And what normal people or what the average person does is they rely on Workopolis and Monster Board and some of these sites for looking for work. And they're certainly good options. But one of the issues that you're going to find is because there's so many people out there looking for work, there's fierce competition for those posted jobs. Those posted jobs, the criteria has become very, very specific. The company is going to go through the process of screening and hiring and testing. There's a lot of cost associated with that, so they want to have the very best person possible. So they're going to, receive a lot of resumes. They're going to keep that applicant pool as broad as possible, and then they're going to start screening those, applications. And it can be very, very challenging if you're not really that familiar with the specific criteria and industry keywords that are important. That should be in your resume, should be in anything that's related to social media. So ideally, you want to kind of get off that track and take control, because when you're going to Monsterboard or you're going to Workopolis, basically you're not getting any feedback. All you know is you're spending a lot of time, uploading your resumes, applying for jobs, putting a great deal of effort, but you're not getting a lot of results. Okay? So the thing is in using LinkedIn is that you will begin to see results. And you can actually see in real time what actions you are taking, what the response is with regards to people coming and looking at your profile. Okay? So let's begin. One thing, just for some housekeeping purposes, I will be, we'll have a mid-time break for 15 minutes to go to the washroom, so that's going to happen approximately at 3 o'clock. And then if I could just ask that people come back promptly at that break, because I believe there's going to be some draws. Okay? It's a little bit of a motivator to get you back into your seats. Okay? So, as I kind of indicated in my introduction, my expertise are, with placement and helping people with job search. But using social media and LinkedIn is extremely important for anyone who is looking to open a business. Particularly small to medium-sized enterprise where you don't necessarily have the same budget to have outside third-party marketing firms come in and take care of that side of things. You have to have a way of getting connected to your customer. And this is another area where LinkedIn becomes very, very important. So what you have to realize is everything that you're acquiring in terms of skill sets when you're doing your job search right now as a student, okay, is going to actually help you later on if you do decide that you want to endeavor into opening up a business, whether it's something part-time on the side, where you get a residual income, that kind of thing. One of the really important things that I talk to students about is you have to be in the right mindset when you're delving into something new. It can be really scary, it can be very intimidating. So one of the things is, I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of the books out there related to intention, The Power of Now, for instance, maybe one of them. Okay? But what you need to do is that you really need to see yourself successful. Okay? This is the first step. You got to see yourself there. But in order to see yourself there, you have to know where you want to go. Okay? So where do you want to go? I wonder how many of you have actually sat down and really expressed that idea. Okay? And not just kind of kept it kind of locked up in your brain, but actually committed it to paper. Okay? If you're looking 5 years down the road, where would you like to see yourself? And I'm not talking in the sense of when you're preparing for an interview and that particular question, where you see yourself in 5 years. Because obviously that's going to be limiting because you're going to change your perspective based on what you think the employer wants to hear. Okay? I want you to think about, best case scenario. Okay? You had all the resources available to equip you. Where would you be? Where would you like to be? What would you like to be doing? What would you like your role to be in life? What would you like to be fixing? Is there a certain concern out there in the world that you feel passionate about? Okay? These are very important areas to start reflecting on and thinking about, particularly being a student. Okay? Because one of the things that is going to make it a little bit tougher for you is you may not have as much business experience in your field as other people that are competitors, okay, that are competing for those jobs, okay? So how how you can actually increase interest is being able to express who you are as an individual and what your passion is. What is your mission? Okay. And it's a really extremely important step. And I'll show you one of our students' profiles where we kind of address that to some degree a little bit later on. Okay? But employers are increasingly looking at engaging people through social media, okay? Not just to find people with the best skills, technical qualifications, X number of years of experience, that kind of thing, but that they're wanting to get a better definition of you as a person, as an individual. Are you going to grow with your organization? Do you have the right, set of characteristics? Do you have the right drive? Do you have the right energy? Do you have the same perspective as them? Do you have the same vision? Okay? These are going to be things that you want to start trying to figure out. Okay? Because, the world is changing so rapidly, okay, that, a lot of the times it's that vision, it's that mission, it's that drive that when you're in an organization that's going to help propel you, particularly when you're in those uncertain times. So this is a definition. So intention, an act or instance of determined mentality upon some action or result. The end or object intended, or the purpose, okay? So this is again, what is your purpose? What is your intent, okay? The other thing that is very important when you're out in the social media, and for those of you who are in business or marketing are going to be familiar, okay? For me, integrity in my field, when I'm helping others, which basically everybody is helping somebody, integrity and you having that voice that people can count on, that you have an identity where people have certain expectations of you that they know you're going to fulfill, okay? So the first definition, strict adherence to a moral code reflected in transparency, or transparent honesty, complete harmony of what one thinks and says and does, okay? So, if you're creating a LinkedIn profile, all right, and one of your causes is you're into animal protection issues, all right, but then on your Facebook account, you're posting photos of, your friends, harassing some poor animal, okay? That wouldn't be very integral to your brand, okay? So one of the things that's important is that you are looking in the various spaces where you have information out there about you, and you start transferring that brand into those different worlds or social circles, okay? So again, it's important that there's kind of a theme in terms of who you are. A state or system where it is performing or intending functions without being degraded or impaired by changes, disruptions, internal or external environments. Okay? So this is, again, you're staying the course. You're unwavering commitment to what you're doing. Okay? And you can't have that commitment unless you have some particular goals for yourself. Okay, so transmission of data, okay, that is free from any sources of change. So when you're thinking about what the data you're giving out is your communications, right? And is your communications consistent, okay, with what you are trying to achieve? Okay, so basically your refusal to be compromised. And if you have an integrity, you're able to inspire others, okay? If you don't have integrity, your brand is worthless. The other thing that's really important is, and we're talking about concepts here, is a lot of people will get into a debate, they don't necessarily believe me, but there is as a rule of reciprocity, people will actually take note of who is assisting them, okay? And there's tons of opportunities within LinkedIn to assist other people. You know, some of the things might be, just the other day, I had a gentleman, Morelli Murphy, come in. He had done a presentation earlier in our classroom. And through social media, I'm watching what people are doing, and you know, he told me that he's launching a new book coming out very shortly. And so he sent me some information. And so I've already posted out there some information. So he's already got some followers following his page, okay? I've done this before, previously, when I first met with him, and I made some commitments to do some other work for him to help with his promotion, because, you know, we really, you know, seem to be on the same track in terms of our interests and what we do out there in the world. More than likely, we'll end up doing, you know, some particular projects together in the future, okay? And that's the thing, is there's a lot of people out there on LinkedIn that are on there, but they're not there, okay? And the thing is, it's not that difficult to be there, all right? And, you know, it may only take a few minutes a day, and we can talk to you about some of those strategies, how to do that. Okay? The other thing is, LinkedIn is there's a lot of information relayed, and it's in real time. Okay, so there's a lot of information that's transpired to you that you have an opportunity to learn about, relating to, you know, what are the concerns of business out there. Okay, so, you know, it's a good way to potentially keep yourself up to date by the dialogues that are coming out. So people circulate articles, for instance, on various topics. There's groups where there's discussions on, you know, particular things. You know, people begin to debate, you know, whether they believe in a certain strategy or, you know, a certain problem that's out there. How have they resolved it? So what are the best practices that they have come across? And you'll find that for the core people who are very active in LinkedIn, they're going to be very, they're very open with that kind of information, okay? So you're getting information coming to you by those means, okay? The other thing is you can go and take a look at somebody's profile, okay? Which is very, very common. Businesses now, I can guarantee you, okay? When you apply for a job, even when you're going through, you know, a traditional job search site, you know, when they get your resume, they're going to do a search. They're going to perform a search. They may use Google, they may use something else, okay, to find out what you're all about, okay? And so they're going to be finding out, you know, data potentially that is not very helpful for your work search, okay? So one of the things I advise you to do is, if you haven't done so already, run a search, okay? You can do a simple search on Google. This requires you putting your name in quotation marks, okay? And see what comes up, all right? There's other more complex searches that you can do. There's plenty of sites there that, you know, will be willing to do, you know, very quick background checks and things like that. There's usually a fee associated with those, though, just to see what comes up out there. So I talked about the promoting others, okay? Very simple to do, all right? If you see something you like, just like on Facebook, now with LinkedIn you have the opportunity to like a post and make a comment, all right? And, you know, people are going to see that. I'm always checking to see. People are so curious, and if somebody is making a mention of you, irrespective of whether it's Facebook or whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever the media is, in all likelihood, if you have the time, you're going to go and check them out, okay? And sometimes I'll go and check out someone's profile, and, you know, there's not a lot of data there. So I don't spend a lot of time, I just go back to my work. But sometimes I'll go there and I'll see somebody and, like, you know, this person's really interesting. I see some real commonalities here. Our histories are the same, our interests are the same. So how they're promoting themselves has already created a connection, an emotional connection. And more than likely, I will send an invitation to someone like that to join. Okay? So again, if you don't have a profile that's complete, the likelihood is you're not going to be building those connections. Okay? At this stage right now, like I joined LinkedIn in 2006. Okay? It took me probably about 6 months, you know, not a daily practice at all, but you know, to feel confident enough to build my connections to about 600 people. Okay? But then what I found was when I got over the 200 threshold, it became very, very easy. Okay? Now with LinkedIn, because I have about 1,700 connections, I don't particularly spend a great deal of time making new connections. Okay? Generally speaking, they flow the other way, where I'm making decisions in terms of am I taking a connection or not. Okay? And you know, people say, well, you know, LinkedIn's a community. Can you really have a relationship with 1,600, 1,700 people? My answer is yes. Okay? Because all of those people that are part of my community, we have an interest, a mutual interest in one way or another. Okay? I have recruiters in my community. I have other educators in my community. Okay? I have businesses that are interested in our students. Okay? And then I have former coworkers. Okay? So, you know, in Google, we call those circles. In LinkedIn, communities, okay, or groups. But, you know, all of these realms, you have an opportunity to begin discussions. And what I did was, you know, I'm not a blogger, okay? I have a blog that, and I'll show you a little bit later, that I'm using for our programs purposes. But I'm not a blogger. I've done a little bit of my own content, but generally speaking, what I do is I'll recirculate information that I think is relevant, okay? So I'll do a thorough review of something that I've seen, and I'll, you know, basically paste it in, you know, to LinkedIn, and then distribute it, okay, through my networks. And we might do a commentary, that kind of thing, and then you start to see people responding. I'll show you when we jump into LinkedIn. There's areas where you can actually see where your postings are going. Okay, so you know how many people have read that particular post, and how many people referred that post somewhere else. Okay, that kind of thing. And every time there's a referral out, okay, your identity travels with that. Okay, so they can see who the original poster was, and you know you have more opportunity for people to get familiar with your identity. One of the important things is that if you make any changes on LinkedIn, this is a mistake that a lot of people who aren't familiar do, is you don't turn off your notification settings. Okay, so there is an area on LinkedIn called settings that you can go into. All right, and there, if you look down, there'll be an area for notifications where you can turn it on and off. So anytime you're going in to modify your profile, I advise you before you start doing anything to go in and turn it off. And then make sure you turn it back on, because then basically if you don't turn it back on and you're sharing an article, it's not going to go very far at all. So it's really important that you do this every time, because otherwise people are seeing every single change that you're making to your profile, and there'll be updates. Nicole, yeah.
Why did you shut it off in the first place?
It stops the notification changes to your profile or your educational qualifications, or inserting, you know, a presentation or, you know, some other document into there. It's going to send out a notification, and it's going to say, you know, Donna just changed her employment section on LinkedIn. And then 5 minutes later, you know, Donna just changed her, right? Okay? I mean, what you want to do is you want to make all those alterations, turn your notification on, and then they're going to get, you know, just updated in the profile. So when people go back in, they're going to see your beautiful completed profile versus the work in progress. Okay? So it's an important tip to remember. It's important that you join groups on LinkedIn. You have quite a few. I don't know the number off the top of my head, but I think it's at least 30 or 50 groups that you can join. I wouldn't advise you necessarily to join that many. Like I joined all of them, but I had a specific reason to go to my 50, and that is because how many people have actually opened an account on LinkedIn and looked at, the purchasing options? Okay. So if you remember, we call those purchasing options, okay? There's the free service, and then there's a number of different upgrades, okay? And one of the things that changes is the number of in-mails, okay? It's like a little yellow thing that says in-mail, that you get, depending on the level of service that you go for, okay? And you're fairly restricted. I think you're restricted to maybe 10 in-mails a month or something like that, okay? So these are unsolicited mails or connection requests that you make to people you don't know. Okay, so say there's a CEO that you wanted to get in touch with, you have an email that you can send. You're limited those. Okay.
Scott. Is there Scott in here? Oh, there you go. Good price. Okay, so now we'll do back to the call.
Okay, this is a representation of how many people are on LinkedIn. I think there are about 236 million people worldwide. Okay, quite a bit, obviously, in Canada and North America. Okay, it's the largest social networking for professionals in the world. Okay, it counts executives from all the Fortune 500 companies as contacts or members, okay? And all the Fortune 500 companies are using LinkedIn for their job search, and many of them are posting specifically their jobs on LinkedIn. Okay, so if you're looking for Canada specifically, we currently stand at 8 million, okay, which is decent. Okay, a large percentage of them are going to be in the larger cities. So this is just a quote from the former director of corporate communications at LinkedIn. And so she's saying the main reason why companies using LinkedIn is to find passive candidates. Okay? So passive candidates are individuals who are actively looking for work, but may be persuaded, potentially, to go somewhere else if there's a lucrative offer, that kind of thing. Okay? Why do you think someone might be looking at a passive? What's the advantage of going after an individual who may already be working? What might people assume? If you're already working, why would that be important to another business?
They've already got the skills to do the job effectively and are currently doing that, so if you can plug them in immediately to your workforce.
Yeah, I hope so, unless you're fired. Exactly. What else? Yeah.
Yeah, that's work ethic, where they're working.
Yeah. Okay, what else? Yep, exactly. Job connections, people within your network. Yep, what else? Okay.
They might be working for the competitor. You might want to know what they're doing different.
Right. So there might be working for one of your competitors and get some inside information there in terms of developments that might be happening in that company, right? So yeah, for sure, businesses are using that. But the bottom line is the reason why they're looking at passive candidates is because basically the way we're doing it, the way we're finding, the solution we're finding through traditional posting a job and going through the interview process is not satisfying business. Okay? You're usually not getting the right person, the right match. It's a very tedious, lengthy, time-consuming, expensive process, okay? And businesses are really trying to find a way of figuring this out, okay? And they're turning to LinkedIn, okay? Because you might have an expertise area, you know, that you're promoting, just out of general interest, that somebody might potentially go, you know what, this person is doing a really great job. Maybe we'll talk to them, okay? This is why if you're in the transition, it can be very, very helpful, okay? And you are currently, you know, if you are working in a job or you're a student, you are currently engaged in something, okay? It might be good to reflect on how you're engaged within the college and talk a little bit about some of those things as well, because it is showing certain skills and you know, ways of working with people. So employee referrals as well. So it's all down to fit. You know, they're terrified of, you know, making a hiring mistake. You know, and you know, they're trying to find other ways of finding information about you. This is why we're using social media. Okay. This is just another quote from a headhunter. Okay. You know, just basically substantiating why they're using LinkedIn. Okay. So some suggestions: making your profile as complete as possible, making sure you're adding references, projects, URLs, which are links to, you know, other, you know, information that maybe you have created or been a part of, or even the URLs for the businesses. I mean, if you do a search on the company, if you do for Sheridan, you can at least get the Sheridan logo to come up next to, you know, just to make more visually appealing, right? Where people can find more information about the company, they only have to click on it.
Nicole, for references, is there a specific number of references that you would recommend for each position that person has?
Ideally, I would try and get at least one for every position. You know, so there's a good representation. And generally speaking, you're going to start seeing that they're going to say very similar things about you. You know, you're the go-to guy in this area, or, you know, and so it starts to kind of form a really deep impression with, you know, the people who are looking at the profiles, right? If you can get more than one, obviously, really important. You know, businesses will look at that. Like if they are comparing two candidates, you're both on LinkedIn, and one of them has, you know, really good recommendations, the other one hasn't pursued those recommendations, it might sway whether or not they're going to, you know, hire you. Okay. So with recommendations, you know, it does require you to do a little bit of effort, right? It will require you checking to see who you formerly worked with, making sure you're on LinkedIn, connecting with them, giving them a call, saying, you know, right now I'm looking to make a change. You know, I'm really trying to emphasize this kind of skill set in my search and make people aware of my strengths in these areas. Can I ask you to take a few minutes to write a recommendation for me? Okay? And, you know, most people will do that. Now, you sometimes get people who will come back and say, well, you write your own recommendation, send it to me, and I'll post it. Okay, that's the easy way out, I guess. You could do it that way. I've had people say that as well. But, you know, okay? But there's also another area, other than recommendations, that is now becoming very popular. It's called endorsements. Okay, and you'll probably see now at the top, it's prompting you to endorse people. So they do have this particular skill, that particular skill. And LinkedIn is really changing that, so it's going to be weighted very high when you come up in a search. Okay, so the more endorsements you have, the higher you're going to come up in the search. Okay, so it's really important that if you haven't filled out that skill section, okay, you know, on LinkedIn, people aren't going to endorse you, okay? Because it's much easier for them to click on something else and go, okay, yeah, she understands social media, you know, just click it and agree, right? Versus them, you know, having to kind of say, okay, you know, recommend a skill set for you. That's not really someone else's job. Okay? So this is another a testimonial from a job seeker. I'm not gonna give it to you. You can take a look at it later. Okay, but it's showing how this individual wasn't having much success in traditional ways, and then how we can help them. called Edzuna. Okay? And what you can do is it will actually pull feeds from, you have to toggle between the two, okay? Okay. Experience, a little particular detail. Now you did do the skills and expertise, okay, which is great. Now when you build your skills and expertise, how did you come across, identify those particular skills? Was there anything you tried to do or just off the top of your head?
Unfortunately, it was a class that we did, a digital media class,
Yeah.
and we had to create a LinkedIn profile.
Okay.
So I just went.
Okay, okay. So what you might want to do is like identify some of those jobs that you see yourself doing, you know, your dream job, and going through and extracting and seeing, you know, because you might be able to target a little bit more and speak more to the type of positions you might be pursuing. But that's fine. I mean, if somebody was searching, you know, for a candidate and looking for coordinating events, you know, you're going to have it actually identify that one particular skill set in that area. One of the important things with LinkedIn is you got to think of each of the areas, whether it's your headline or your summary or your education, as distinct areas. Okay, and you need to put you know, your keywords dispersed throughout those different areas. Okay, so if you're, say to yourself, you know, I've mentioned that I'm really exceptional in events management in my summary, that's great, but if you only use that keyword once there and then nowhere else throughout, you're still going to end up with low ranking, okay, when you go through a search engine, okay? So it is important that in your job descriptions, you know, that you are using some of those keywords. So you might want to have event management or, you know, supporting people with event management or whatever, you know, you have some expertise in other areas. Okay? You can also, with descriptions, you know, when it comes to specific courses or projects, okay? So if you're actually talking about your course and the curriculum, it will actually crawl into there and extract keywords from there as well. So the more data you put into LinkedIn with the keywords, the better your ranking. That comes on the top of your LinkedIn, okay, that we're talking about, where it's asking you, or asking the people that are your connections about your skills in various areas, okay. A lot of people say this endorsement is not very valid because people just simply say yes. Well, I know myself, I don't. So I'm sure there's people out there as well, like me, like, you know, I might agree with one of those people and then I'll just close it, right? I don't feel obligated to go in and endorse every one of my contacts in every area that they put up, okay? That's my personal opinion. You know, there are other people who say, well, it's not valid because people are going to do it as a favor, you know, kind of thing. But if we're looking at Janet, look at this beautiful picture she now has, okay? And her headline, okay? And she hasn't had a chance to go back in, but one of the things that she'll need to do is she'll need to put in a statement as her headline and not just do the default setting. We had talked about, you know, this first phrase here, right here, as being her byline, then you need a conduit between your business and your customers.
The challenge I was having, Nicole, is that, okay, I'm not computer savvy, if you want to put it that way, and I'm thinking, where does this go? So I have to teach myself. I'm learning how to go in there and not be afraid of it.
Yeah, not be afraid of it. You can touch things and open things up. Nothing's going to happen. The computer's not going Essex Road.
But you want to make
Yeah.
sure that it's going in the right spot.
And hire, you know, if it's, say it's an HR manager and he's out in Halifax. You don't really necessarily know. So if it's a target company of yours, you know, because what you're gonna see, okay, is you're gonna see get a sense of the larger organization, maybe in Halifax, because there's a lot of, you know, maybe they're doing a lot of, you know, more mining exploration with this particular company, and the gentleman's posting information about all that kind of thing. So here in Ontario, you know, there may not be a lot of media information, but you already have knowledge of the larger company. So is that showing interest if you were able to talk about that in the interview? Okay, so, you know, sometimes, you know, I think the tendency is a lot of times we try to overthink things too much, okay? And I find that when you're using social media, you know, basically don't overthink, you know, take a look, don't just accept everybody who connects with you, but if that person has some background in the field, has taken time on their LinkedIn, is a contributor in some way on LinkedIn, then it's probably a good idea to connect with them. Okay? Now I know LinkedIn advises people not to connect with strangers, okay? But if somebody's really interested in getting your identity, there's ways of going about that very easily without having to find information on LinkedIn on somebody. So this is a reference sheet for you. Here's actually a LinkedIn answers area. If you ever encounter any kind of problem, you can go into LinkedIn Answers and run a search to find out an answer or a solution to your problem. Or you can contact LinkedIn direct, okay? I find that, you know, sometimes within a matter of minutes I'll be getting a response if there's something, a glitch or something that I've discovered related to my profile. So what is important is you've got to do a little bit of pre-planning when it comes to developing your profile, okay? And part of that is you have to use a certain number of keywords that you've identified that are related to the field or the position that is your role, okay? So in order to extract or understand keywords, you're going to have to go and take a look at a spectrum of job postings in that category, and you're going to have to do some analysis. Okay, so what is the general rule in terms of what are they asking for educational qualifications? What are they asking for with respect to membership or professional organizations? What are the technical skills that they're all asking for? What are the soft skills or non-technical skills that they're asking for? And you're going to begin to see a repetition of some of these things. Okay, so this is where I would suggest you print out some postings, get out a highlighter, and go through and actually identify, you know, what those keywords might be. Okay? Now there are programs on the internet, you know, that are basically like a keyword extraction. You put a Google keyword extractor. You're going to get a lot of widgets and apps that, you know, can do that. The only problem that I find with them is what you can do is you can copy and paste the different postings that you have looked at, and then you run it through the program, and it'll show you a count on top in terms of the number of keywords. Because a lot of times you're going to get a lot of the ands and ors and is and all these kind of things coming up as high, or words that weren't necessarily identified as together coming through. So I still think, you know, paper, pencil is, you know, the best route to do that. So professional headline is something that most people don't realize that LinkedIn's equipped to do. Okay, this is located right under your name on LinkedIn. Okay, when you join LinkedIn, it automatically defaults and it gives you basically it will say where you are. So student at Sheridan College or career support specialist at Sheridan College. That's not very interesting, right? So you can change your setting here and produce a headline, okay? So it's one of the only customizable personal information areas that they will see when they do a search in the group. of people, okay? So like, you know, in my example, I'm trying to think let me connect you to, I'm not sure, I've changed it a few times, right? But I've changed my headline a few times, and I've had people specifically, when they emailed me saying, yes, I would like that kind of help. And so I got a customer, okay? And they wouldn't have seen me, you know, that way, unless if I had just shared a college career support specialist, because, what, they're not in the college circle, so why would we have a connection, okay? So really, really important. So first man on the moon. Then think of it as a newspaper heading. So what is going to grab someone's you know, attention? So here's an example of one of my former students. She's now working in the movement. Okay. So Amelia, she's at school, obviously a student at York University. She's also working with the placement employer, where she had her placement. But this is an example of a default setting. Okay? So if I was looking for a candidate, and by the way, 90% of companies now are using LinkedIn to look for candidates, or recruiters are looking for candidates on LinkedIn. And I see student at York University. So I go into my groups, I do a search, I put in some keywords, and then I see Amelia's. This is all that comes up for me. What's the likelihood I'll probably pass her over and not maybe open her profile? Pretty strong, right? She's not available, right? She's at school, okay? But she may be looking for work right now. So this example here, BJC. This is another student. She's working, but she's looking, she's always maintained her interest in getting into her research analyst position. She's actually working at March right now, okay? But this is what her profile or her headline says, research analyst actively seeking work, okay? So this is actually, it's better than the previous one, because Lisa's telling me something. It's saying, okay, this individual is looking for work, okay? And so why hide that? I can't believe how many profiles I go into, and you know, the person's clearly in Toronto, yet they're saying they're still working with their former employer back in their former country offshore. Okay? Well, I know that's not true, and you've just eroded my trust right away. Okay? So you know, you let people know. Okay? This is how people find you. If you don't let people know what you're looking for, they can't find you. Okay? So this is one I just changed. Okay, I didn't get her permission to do that. This is for the example here. But there's a number of the categories that I knew she was interested in taking potentially. And so what I've done is I've increased her keyword visibility by just making some changes. Okay, you're allowed to have 140 characters in your headline. Okay, so now, if I was searching for research, okay, it's going to come up. If I'm searching for market or analyst, the keyword's going to come up, okay, or tourism, for instance. Okay? So you do need to sprinkle some keywords into your headline. It's actually, in terms of ranking, it's one of the highest areas.
Nicole, I just wanted to ask. I get asked this question a lot from students who have divergent career paths. What should they do with that? Because sometimes in their country of origin, for one thing, when they come to Canada, they're also looking for maybe an entry-level position or a position in a different field in order to pay the bills. So,
well, I tell people to be what they are. Are they back there, or are they here? If you're here and you're moving forward in that direction, everything should be going that direction. So everything should be focusing to where you want to be.
what if they have two divergent fields, say accounting and HR, and they have experience in both, and they want to increase their opportunity to get a job?
Yeah.
What should they do in that?
So in the accounting area, so on your employment experience, you're still going to have accounting, but then you're going to be very selective in terms of what you're highlighting in terms of the duties and responsibilities. So you might want to emphasize your knowledge of internal structures, working in a unionized
these kind of things you think will translate to HR, okay? Maybe there's particular projects that you're very good at being involved with. Maybe you have some project management skills already, even as an accountant, okay? Very good analytical skills. So there's a lot of different things that you can potentially focus on, and I would ask people to try to do that, okay? Rather than getting into too much of a description of what you're doing as an accountant, because there's no relevancy. Everything does need to be relevant, okay? And then obviously the area, okay, your headline needs to be changed to reflect what you're looking for, but then also your summary section does need to change, okay? And then there's other areas like skills, interest areas, these kind of things need to start reflecting what your future goal is.
If the sum is looking for two different things at the same time, so we're looking for either an accounting position or an HR position, is it a huge faux pas to put accounting/human resources in your headline?
No, I mean, it's going to capture another keyword, but you do need to have some type of explanation somewhere about that. There is an area down at the very bottom. You have to scroll quite a way down. And I'm not sure if it's activated in every account, but it's instructions to connect, okay? And what you can do is you can put in there, like I have 3 different instructions in there. You know, if you're a student and you're a newcomer and you want to join our program, you know, if you're interested in lifestyle, you know, coaching and health coaching or career counseling services, you know, call this number, that kind of thing. So I would suggest that you have that information there as well.
Thank you so much.
So these are some just examples of some LinkedIn makeovers for the headline. This was actually done by a professional company. So again, identifying the title, but then there's actually some kind of statement that grabs attention. So building high-performance sales teams that align with